My name is Norm Segal. In 1969, Fred Holstein at the Earl of Old Town named me Mad Dog. And that is stuck for all that time. I still refer to myself as that. Jim would, when we'd get together, I used to do sound for him a lot. And he called my second wife Mrs. Mad Dog. So we had a lot of interactions and a lot of personal love between the two of us. It was weird. And then I lost touch with him when he went into the assisted living place. I actually lost touch with him because I didn't know how to get in touch with him. I know he had his cell, but every time I'd call him on the phone, that was an adventure in itself. It would go from this topic to this topic to this topic, and he wouldn't stop. It was, hi Jim, hey Mad Dog, you gotta understand.
Man always had something to talk.
I go back to the days of Friend and Lover, when he had this beautiful red-haired dancer of a woman with him named Kathy Kahn, and she was marvelous. She played the hell out of a harmonica, and she would dance while she did what she was doing. And well, I have to say that like everybody else that ever saw her, I had a mad crush on the lady. We met at a place called It's Here, Chicago's Boss Coffee House on Sheridan Road back around 1967. Oh man, those were some strange days. And I stopped hanging out there and I went to the Earl, and lo and behold, there's Friend and Lover on the stage, and it just kept on going from there.
He loved playing that place out there.
Oh, that was home.
Yeah.
That was home. He felt the best there. There was a lady there by the name of Marina Jason who did Earl's PR, and she really did Jim up whenever she could. She make the PR stuff, use the photos, make those signs that you saw on the back of the stage.
Right.
The stage was a postage stamp. Tried to get a 5-piece band on that stage. We did. The band was called Redhead. We had a lot of fun back then. We played Troubles, we played Orphans, we played the Earl, we did a whole series of ground rounds. And Earl,
you played as well?
Pardon?
You played as well? You played as well?
Oh yeah, I'm a bass player.
Oh, okay.
But I shouldn't say that. But I'm a bass player, and who also knows how to play guitar quite from the heart.
Wonderful.
But Jim, I think that Jim played Earl's North Side place on Harlem Avenue. It was called the Earl North. I think he played there once.
Oh, no,
I think he preferred to play on Wells Street because it was too Cosmo back then. It was in a suburb of Norwich. And the other things, I remember one night my wife and I were late getting to a gig because we were going to do sound for the gig and we didn't get there in time. So they used their own sound and we combined our stuff with theirs. And in the middle of 3 soft touches, where they had taken a spotlight and brought it down on his face, and in the middle of that, some guy walked up with a birthday cake and said, "Happy birthday, Jim." Just totally blew the whole situation. I thought Jim was going to kill him. I thought Jim was going to take that cake and smash it in his face, which he should have done. But Jim rolled with the punches. He also, it was so much. He had a reputation of being a womanizer. A different woman every night. I think that was his insecurity.
That he loved women.
Oh yeah, he sure did.
Yes, he did.
He loved a lot of them.
Yes, he did.
Oh God, I'm trying to remember names now. Margaret? There was a beautiful blonde named Margaret who, this is Jim's schoolhouse. in Stoughton, Wisconsin, where the people all say oofta. I was up there when Cher and I went up there one Saturday. I slept on the floor. We both slept on the floor. We just had a couple blankets and just laid them out. But it was Jim's birthday. Mine was the next day. I was born on the 29th. He was born on the 28th.
That was
And
quite a week.
he insisted that we go out and walk along the, well, what I learned to call them are section roads. And we walked out there on the other side of the pasture on a half a dozen cows. And Jim would call them. And they'd come running. He'd sing to them as they were running across. It was funnier than hell. It was an experience I never had before.
I have that story from Jim's mouth. I do. Thank you for sharing that.
Jim was a special kind of guy. There's so many times with Randy Sabine. All the horrible things that he said about Randy. Out of love,
Right.
but they were so bad.
He loves Randy. He really did.
He's probably up there wishing he had him with him. I don't want him to go yet.
No, we don't want anybody else to go yet.
On Facebook, there is a post of him singing the song about 10 days before he died.
Oh, wonderful.
And I think it's the last time all of us have heard his voice. And he looked tired. He looked worn out. But that was still there.
Yeah. I don't mean to take you away from Jim, but did you know Steve Goodman? Did you get a chance to meet Steve?
I met Steve in 1967 as well.
Did you really?
He had come to It's Here. You want me to go on?
Would you mind? Steve's one of my favorite people of all time. I mean, I love Jim.
I love Steve. So, first of all, Steve is a year and a half younger than I am. And our backgrounds as kids are pretty similar. I sang in an all-male choir in a synagogue. He sang in a regular choir in a synagogue, and I think the name of the synagogue at that time was Share a Tikva. It was on Kimball, between Foster and Lawrence Avenue, that area. Foster and Peters or Cormac in that area, and he would sing Kol Nidre. He would do all that stuff. And what changed for him and didn't change for me was a little pocket transistor with an earphone.
Oh, yeah.
And he listened to all the rock and roll and all that stuff. And I didn't meet him until after he was through with high school. After he had played around a little with that big red Gibson Hummingbird guitar. And it was bigger than he was. He came to It's Here, and he auditioned there. 5 songs. Last song was Tell Laura I Love Her.
Oh, my.
And the last verse, he goes, and she heard his voice, heard Johnny's voice saying, "You bitch." He didn't get hired that night. You can't use that kind of language in my club. That's what was said. You cannot use that kind of language in my club. I cater to the kids of the North Shore of the city of Chicago, and they come here to spend their mom and dad's money.
So Steve didn't get the gig.
Yeah, he didn't get hired then. I was working there that night, and we walked out, and we were talking on the sidewalk, and some guy, some nuthead, comes speeding down the sidewalk, going north on the sidewalk. And I pushed Steve back a little, and it scared the living daylights out of me. About, I'd say 2 years later, there's Steve at the Earl on New Year's Eve with half the world with him. Those days were fun.
Oh, I bet.
I one day at the Earl, I showed up at the Earl because my band was playing there that night. I showed up at the Earl real early so I could get Gus to make me a burger. So we're sitting there, and he says, I got to get over the troubles, and then I got something else to do. I don't want to call a cab. And I said, you don't have to. I'll drive you. I put him in the car that his father sold me. I drove him, and we're sitting there, and we're listening to the radio, and all of a sudden, on comes a commercial for Old Style beer that he did. I said, is that you? He said, yeah. I said, how'd you do that? He wasn't into sharing that information. But he was very much into, he supported people.
That's what I loved about the man. He wasn't just about his own self, he was about everyone with him.
I went one New Year's Eve, I went up to the WFMT show, and Rich Warren wouldn't let me in because I had an electric bass with me.
No kidding.
You don't play electric bass on WFMT. Steve is standing there at the window going. But what was really cool was the fact that when Steve played at the Earl, if Fred Holstein was playing, I played bass for both of them. I mean, everything was from ear. I never rehearsed with Fred. Hey, shut up!
What's the puppy's name?
His name is Aristotle.
Well,
he's just philosophizing.
We got to give Aristotle some credit on the video when we hear him. So.
Aristotle.
Yeah.
I rehomed him. He's going to be 11 in March. Speaking about Steve, I have a couple of secondhand stories that appeared in Clay Eels' book.
Oh yes.
And I asked Steve about them. One of the stories I know about was Earl had taken Fred, Ed, Steve, me, and one other person to go downtown to have prime rib. And before we would go over to the restaurant, Steve said, I got to go into Lion and Healy. I asked them to order me some 45s,
okay.
So I want to see if they got them. And they were all Hank Williams. All of them were Hank Williams. And we were there, and Fred and Ed just hung out by the front windows. They didn't want to get involved in this place. What the hell are they doing in a big major music store like this? And Earl is just hanging around, and I go through and I'm looking at the portfolios of all the music. And lo and behold, I come up with a copy of a thing called Airy by John Denver.
Okay.
And so I looked at it, and it said, with City of New Orleans. Okay. So I looked it up, and the first thing that pissed me off was the fact that John Denver was given writing credits because he changed a couple of words and left out a half a verse. And stupid. I showed it to Steve. I don't know if he knew about it, but
no.
His ears turned red. His ears turned blood red. We didn't go for dinner. He was so pissed.
I bet.
So the other story that I know about is secondhand because it comes from the book, is that he was in New York and someone was selling cutout albums on the street corner.
Of Steve's?
Of him.
Oh, no kidding.
Tons of cutout albums. And Steve blew his cork. And he went up, what are you doing? You're taking money away from my children. I remember at the dedication of the post office, seeing Nancy for the first time in God knows how long, and seeing the daughters. It's the last time I think that, what's her name, Jessie, was still alive then. That's a story that's pretty sad. Evie, oh man,
And we're here to celebrate Jimmy.
Yeah, well, we're here to celebrate life.
Yeah.
Stevie
Isn't that it?
was
Thank you for saying that. I
no
appreciate it.
problem at all.